yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I resisted that before, but do I have to resist it now?
Got it. Got it. Okay, it is 8 a.m. Good morning and welcome to the 10X rule call. We're going to move through the slides, and of course, anybody who wants to share anything, you're able to do that, and it's simple. All you got to do is say your first name, and then I'll call on you. Saying your first name is kind of like raising your hand, okay? That way it keeps it a little bit more orderly. There's a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff. Joanne, do you remember Jeff's last name? Jeff?
I don't.
Can't think of his name. Anyway, it's a great little book. It's out of print, but you can usually find them someplace. But out of The Slight Edge, I took a quote. It says, if you learn to understand and apply the slight edge, your life will become filled with hundreds of thousands of small, seemingly insignificant actions, all of them genuinely simple, none of them mysterious or complex. In other words, you have to master the mundane, and those actions will create your success. Now, that was really a mouthful, and I'm going to generate it again and really just listen closely. And as I try to generate it in a way that it's contextual. If you learn to understand and apply the slight edge, so first thing is, what the hell's the slight edge? The slight edge are the hundreds of thousands of small, seemingly insignificant actions that you take every day or all the time. Think about it. If you brush your teeth and floss every single morning, every single night, you know when you go to the dentist, you're going to get a good report, right? Absolutely. If you decide to eat candy before you go to bed every night and you don't brush and you don't floss for the same period of time, you're going to go to the dentist and your teeth are going to be rotten. So, but these changes happen so slowly that we don't quite see it until the end result shows up. So the slight edge are those small actions that you take or don't take every single day. So now I'll generate it. If you learn to understand and apply the slight edge, your life will become filled with hundreds of thousands of small, seemingly insignificant actions, all of them genuinely simple, none of them mysterious or complex. In other words, you have to master the mundane, and those actions will create your success. Now, I just went to the next slide for those of you who are on the phone. And Jim Rohn, this is a quote from Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn, he is like the father of this kind of work. He gave birth to many of the great ones. I think, right off the bat, I think of Tony Robbins, who uses a lot of Jim Rohn stuff, but he's not the only one. Many, many people do. Jim Rohn said, the simple things that lead to success are all easy to do. Now, I know that doesn't land very well, so I'm going to say it again. Jim Rohn says, the simple things that lead to success are all easy to do, but they're also just as easy not to do. So take a moment and consider some of the simple things that you know lead to your own personal success, and they're easy to do. And notice that they're also just as easy not to do. Take a moment and consider. I just was thinking of one for myself. At nighttime, before I leave my office, there's two things. One, is I straighten everything up so that when I come in the morning, it's more inviting. And it's pretty easy to do. But I got to tell you, when it's the end of the day, and I don't know how you guys are, but I push everything right up to the last minute. Like I try to get as much in as I can. Then I realize I don't have that extra time. So it's also just as easy not to do that. The other thing that I do that has me be more successful is I do a time outline before I end my day. What do I mean by that? Well, there are specific things that I know have to happen tomorrow morning. And I have to back my time up. I mean, even if it's a flight, let's say I have a 8 a.m. flight. Well, I know I have to be to the airport by 7. I know I have to drive at 6:30 to get there by 7. I know I need 2 hours in the morning. Now, don't misunderstand. It's not like I prep for 2 hours, but I've got to meditate. I do my stretching. There's a number of things that I do in the morning to make my life work. So then I back it up, and that's how I know what time to get up. That really serves me, and it's very easy to do that, and it's really easy not to. Anybody have one of your own that you'd be willing to share? Just say your first name, and then I'll call on you. And don't forget, you might be muted. Okay, my real talkative group. Remembering to tell your wife or your husband or your spouse, significant other, your puppy, your friends, the people that are important to you, that you love them, and do that every day. So remembering to tell these people you love them and doing that every day, what could be easier than that? To do or not to do. So while anyone could do these successful actions, most won't. Simply because it's so easy to skip them. And the tragic irony of it is that doesn't actually end up making their life, it doesn't end up making their lives any easier. We're all doing simple things anyway. Unsuccessful people just choose what they think is the path of least resistance, but it really isn't. So let's see, to do or not to do. So anyone could do these successful actions, and most won't. I was remembering a line. It says, the extra mile doesn't have any traffic jams. I think it's in Grant Cardone's book. I think it's in the 10-time rule. The extra mile. So, you know, you talk about taking the extra mile. The people who win go the extra mile. And he's saying the extra mile doesn't have traffic jams. And what he's saying there is that most people won't go the extra mile. So that's one thing you and I can do. We can look at, what is that extra mile? Without stressing ourselves out, right? How do we make that a game? How do we make that entertaining? You know, one thing that Grant Cardone says is that if your goals and your actions aren't big enough, that's why it's not fun. So when we develop our day, when we develop our job to do, when we try to make it too easy, it's rarely any fun. It's when we make it bigger than we can do, something we have to reach for a little harder, that the attainment of it, even if we don't reach it completely, is way more satisfying. We all are the same. Robert, do you mind reading this slide for me?
Okay, I'm unmuted. The successful and unsuccessful both do the same basic things in their lives, day in and day out. Yet the things successful people do take them to the top, while the things unsuccessful people do take them down and out. So what's the difference? The difference is their awareness, understanding, and application of the slight edge in their life and work.
Beautiful. Thank you. We are all the same. Successful people and unsuccessful people, we're all the same. We both do the same basic things in our lives, day in and day out. But there are things that successful people do day in and day out that take them to the top, while there are things that those of us who are unsuccessful do that take us down and out. What's the difference? The difference is being aware, understanding, and then applying that slight edge to your life and your work. And what do I mean by the slight edge? Doing those teeny tiny things. You know, I was on my way down to the office and there was a piece of paper on the landing. And I'm notorious for running from one thing to the next thing. I'm notorious for that. Which means when I see that piece of paper, the thought of stopping and picking it up, it's not even there for me. It's like later, one of these days, right? That sucker could be there for 3 days. The slight edge says, stop and pick it up. And of course I do. And the difference that it makes is that I don't have that impact on my psyche every time I come down the steps or every time I walk up the steps. Joanne, do you mind?
No problem. 10X thinking and actions are vital. They are the only thing that will get you through the challenge of the marketplace. Money alone cannot do it. It can help, but it can't do the job for you. When you miscalculate the efforts you need to make something happen, you become visibly disappointed and discouraged. This causes you to incorrectly identify the problem and sooner or later assume that the target is unattainable and ultimately throw in the towel. When you correctly estimate the effort necessary, you will assume the appropriate posture.
Beautiful. So, 10-time thinking and actions are vital. What does that mean? Well, it means if I'm taking on a task, I've got to think way more than I think is necessary. And I got to take actions beyond what I think are going to get the job done. Why? Because my ordinary way of thinking and my ordinary way of actions will not get me the big game or the big goal that I'm trying to achieve. So 10-time thinking and actions are vital. They're the only things that will get you through the challenges of the marketplace. So think about it. Those of you who are in sales and you're in the field, there are challenges in the marketplace, are there not? You have competition, and you bump into your competition on your way in, on your way out. The only thing that will get you through the challenges of the marketplace, people stealing your customers, people taking the back bar, is 10 times thinking and action. Money alone can't do it. In other words, you can have a lot of money to throw at something, but the money alone won't get it done. It can't do the job for you. So you and I want to practice together calculating the efforts that we need versus miscalculating the efforts that we need. Because when we miscalculate, we become disappointed and discouraged. And the last thing on this slide was, when you correctly estimate the effort necessary, you will assume the appropriate posture. I love this line because here's what it's saying. It's saying when you and I miscalculate and we don't put in what we need to put in or think the way we need to think to actually get in the game like we're going to win, we show up discouraged and disappointed. You can hide it all you want, but there is some way that you're being that's showing up. That's the posture that he's talking about. But when you put in the effort, when you put in the thinking and the actions, then you assume the appropriate posture. That is, you get in front of your clients and you're somebody who has courage. You're somebody who's moving forward. You're somebody who's actually confident. Now, Grant Cardone in his book, I found this very fascinating because as a manager, I can't tell you how often I will reduce a target. And he says, never reduce a target. Instead, increase actions. When you start rethinking your targets and making up excuses and letting yourself off the hook, you are giving up on your dreams. Excuse me. The 10X rule assumes the 10X rule assumes the target is never the problem. Any target attacked with the right actions in the right amounts with persistence is attainable. If your product costs nothing to make and it's 100 times superior to its closest competitor, you will still have to apply 10 times more effort just to push through all the noise in order to get people to even know about it. Try that one on. Even if your product costs nothing for you to make and it's 100 times better than its closest competitor, you're still going to have to apply 10 times more effort just to push through all the noise in order to get people to know about it. 4 degrees of action. Is there I don't know how many people are here that can see the screen, but is there somebody else who might want to read this particular screen for me? All right, well, I guess you like hearing me talk, because I will.
I'll do it.
Oh, thank you, Robert. And read it from the top, not the one that says text, of course. But
right. 4 degrees of action. Shortcut.
Nope. Nope. Say it again.
Shortcut?
There you go.
Shortcut. It's a question. No, there are no shortcuts. The more action you take, the better your chances. Discipline, consistent, and persistent actions are more of a determining factor in the creation of success than any other combination of things.
Will you do that one again?
I want to do that one again.
Thanks.
Discipline, consistent, and persistent actions are more of a determining factor in the creation of success than any other combination of things. I like that. Understanding how to calculate that, and then take the right amount of action is more important than your concept, your idea, or your invention.
Beautiful. Thank you. Tackle your project with the 10-time rule like your life depends on it. So everybody take a moment and consider, what is your project? And listen, it doesn't have to be a long-term project. It could be a today project. It could be a this weekend project. It could be a this month project. But take a moment and consider and write down, what's your project? Now, if you're driving, you're not going to write it down, right? But you got to commit it to memory somehow. Very good. Tackle your project with, fill in the blank. Tackle your blank with the 10-time rule like your life depends on it. Attack everything with the ferociousness of a champion athlete who's getting his or her last opportunity to claim the pages in history. Tackle your project with the 10-time rule, like your life depends on it. All right, we're going to do the exercise. What is the first reaction that most people, including managers, have when they're not hitting their targets? Anybody? Oh, you were muted, Joanne.
Oh, sorry, Joanne.
Uh-huh.
So the first reaction is to adapt the project, shrink it down a bit.
That's right. We want to, the first reaction is we're going to lower the target, and then we have a list of our excuses and our reasons why. Very good. When you start making excuses for why you aren't hitting your targets, what should that indicate to you? Somebody. When you start making excuses for why you aren't hitting your targets, what should that indicate to you? To put in more action. That's what it says. That's what it says. More action is always the answer, not lowering the targets. And then the last one is fill in the following. The 10X rule assumes the target is never, somebody, never the problem. Any target attacked with the right blank, what is that? With the right
Actions.
In the right
Time, was it?
I don't remember, but bottom line, I don't have
In the right amount.
In the right amount with persistence is the next word was
Attainable.
Attainable. Perfect. Beautiful. 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 Well, we moved through today a little quicker than the 2 weeks ago. Yay. Anybody have anything they want to say? Anything they want to share? Anything coming out of the work you've been doing?
Joanne?
Yeah, Joanne, go ahead.
So one of the things I noticed as I was pondering this book and how to apply it to my current life is that I look back in time and I looked at the areas that I was super successful and how did I apply this in that, and then in the areas I wasn't super successful, where could I have applied it to get my result? And one of the examples was when I was moving 6 years ago, I was leaving a house that I had lived in for 28 years, and I was remodeling it. And every stage what we took on, because I had my 2 daughters were still living at home with me, is we would say if a project we thought took 2 hours, then we would double it to 4, and we double it again to 8. And that's what we allowed, is 8 hours for it. And son of a gun, I cannot tell you how many times, and because we thought doing that was so outlandish, we'd have extra time. But how many times it really took the 8 hours to get the project accomplished.
Right, right. Yeah, that's really good. Well, let's see. So back in the 80s, I worked for Logix. Logix hair color company had just hit the market. We launched in 1985, and I was with the company in 1986. And I was a consultant at that time, and I liked it. I did a good job. It was good. And then one day, I don't know what might have inspired me. Whoever knows, right? It could have been anything, but something inspired me. And I remember taking out a piece of paper and saying, okay, this year is going to be a different year for me. And these are the things that I'm out to accomplish. One, I was a cigarette smoker in those days. Number one, I'm going to get free from cigarettes. Number two, I'm going to get promoted. And number three, I'm going to buy a house. Now, keep in mind, I didn't make very much money, and buying a house was it was ridiculous. Even when I wrote it down, I remember feeling ridiculous. But I applied the 10-time rule. I didn't know it was a 10-time rule. I'm looking back like you, Joanne, and I could see that, oh my gosh, that's what I did. There was nothing that was going to get in my way. And there were a lot of things that did get in my way. But because my goal was so big, those challenges were easily pushed aside or attacked head on. And by 1990, I was free from cigarettes. I bought my first home, which, by the way, was a foreclosure. Now, you couldn't do what I did today. You couldn't do it. You'd have to do it some other way. But I had 6 credit cards that I took cash advances out on, all 6 credit cards, and bought that house. That's how I got the down payment. Is that crazy? And I got promoted and transferred to California, and my life has never been the same. Now, I want to acknowledge publicly that that's, what, 30 years ago. So what in the hell have I been doing lately? Right? Oh my gosh. If so much of it worked then, maybe a little bit would be working now. Anyway, it's all good stuff.
Joanne?
Yeah, Joanne, go ahead.
One of the other things, there was a time where I was working for a company, and every month I was in the top 7 in the nation. And when I was looking back at that, what I noticed is I never compared myself to anybody else. I always was on the game for how can I do better than my best. And I noticed that one of the things that I did was anytime I got somebody's name and phone number and they hadn't bought from me or set up with me, I never stopped following up with them. Like some people I must have talked to 3 years before they finally switched over to my service. And it was like most people would have given up on them.
Sure.
And I would keep notes as to why there was issues. So when I called them back, I would say, well, how's that working for you? Have you added employees? Are you done having to manage it yourself? Have you missed any? It was a payroll service. So have you missed any deposits? Because if you miss one deposit, the penalty pays for our service for over a year. So it's not worth taking that risk. And what I notice currently is I do compare myself to others. I'm better than her. I'm better than that. I'm better than, and that's really not a successful way to set up what your goals are in life.
Right. Perfect. Well, everybody who joined us this morning, thank you for being on the call. Hope it was valuable for you. In 2 weeks, we'll have the next call. Anybody who wants to join us, please hop on. We're going to read through chapter 12. So if you would, between now and 2 weeks from now, read through chapter 12. Some of you are doing Atomic Habits with me, and that is this next Friday. And if you are, I'm looking very, very forward to that. And Joanne, I think that you hit the nail on the head. So an assignment might be that you look back in your life at a success that stands out to you and how you actually used the 10X rule and didn't even know it. And with that, I say a lovely good morning to all of you. Robert, if you want to stay on for a moment, I'll give you an update on the app.
Okay.
They contacted me. It's just I have to do an assessment. It might take all day, but I'll let you know when it's done. Okay? So you don't have to stay on. That was all. All right.